Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dee. I'm in 24 in the heart of it. So our guest today is a long-standing Toronto-based housing activist and founder of POOF Protecting ODSP and OW Funding. She was arrested on October 11th at Yonge and Dundas Square on the charges of being a common nuisance. She's well known among the ODSP and OW community for being on the front lines of POOF protest, protesting for the end of poverty and bringing up rates for ODSP and OW. So thank you, Isabella, for joining us today. How are you?
Not too bad, Dee. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. No problem. Before we do start and get into the details of the day of your arrest, let's take a look at the video that an onlooker has posted on YouTube and has recorded the series of events that went down at Yonge and Dundas Square last week.
So here we are, and the police are going to arrest me. Are you filming? Are you live?
Yes.
Okay. So the police want to arrest me on the first day of the week to eradicate the international week to eradicate poverty and homelessness. So the police want to arrest me because I'm blocking the street, which is legal in Canada. It's legal to block the road, but the police think it's their right to infringe on our human rights.
Just in this side. Isabella, just on this side.
Okay, come on.
Isabella.
All right, come on.
Isabella, let's go.
No one should put the cuffs on me. No, you arrest me.
This is very interesting.
Yeah.
I just had two cops grab me by the arm. I have fibromyalgia and it hurt.
So can you just tell us what happened on the day of your arrest that may have not been shown in the video, or some things that we may not have heard from police officers?
The first officers on the scene that morning that came and spoke to me when I was in the middle of Yonge Street, they came out of their vehicle, and two of them approached me, and the one officer said, "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing?" I said, "It's not sir, it's ma'am." He said, "Well, sir," I said, "It's not sir." Mm-hmm. And so I said, "You should go back to your vehicle and try this again." I said, "You should really have this down by now." So they got in their vehicle and they drove away, and they left me alone. Actually, there was two officers, and the other officer, a woman officer, said, "We recommend that you don't be on the road for your protest." I said, "Thank you very much. I understand that. It's okay. I understand that you recommend that, but I don't have to follow that recommendation." Mm-hmm. So that was it, and they drove away. And a few times, 3 or 4 times during the 5 hours I was there before I was arrested, the police did come and approach me and try to get me to move, and I told them it was my right to protest, and I refused to move. Towards the 5-hour mark is when they started getting more aggressive, and telling me they were going to charge me. And so I was on the yellow line, blocking the road as much as I could. And my wheelchair has a big sign that is usually on the back of it that sticks up, and it's about, it just goes underneath doorways. So it's about 6'3" or something. Because it's about maybe 6'4" or something, because doorways are about 6'7" or something, 6'8". Mm. And so the cars could see me, so there's not a real problem that they're going to hit me, especially downtown when the traffic is only going 30 miles an hour, which I pointed out to one officer, and he said, "Oh, no, it's not." I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "It's 30 miles an hour, 50 kilometers." He said, "Oh, it's 50 kilometers. I said, "Yeah, that's 30 miles an hour." He didn't know how they could do the conversion. I was like, okay. But let's digress. But, it's like, they continually came and tried to get me to move, and like towards the 5 hour mark. Oh, at one point, actually before that, I guess it was about 2.5 hour mark or 3 hour mark. I had to use the washroom, so I left my speakers and microphone with somebody on the road, and they said they would keep the road, stay on the road with everybody that was there, and there was about 10 or 12 people there. But while I went to and the police officer at that time, the police did block the road north and south of us a little bit. Just north of us, anyways, at the intersection, there was a police car across Yonge Street sideways, blocking the traffic. And they blocked it farther down, so the cars weren't approaching us for a little bit. But then when I went to the washroom into the Eaton Center, when I came back out, everybody was off the road, and they'd pushed people off. They'd intimidated the people off the road. So when I came back out, I went and got back on the road with my stuff and that. And they said, everybody shouldn't do this and whatever. I said, that's fine, I can do this, and I'm allowed to protest. Mm-hmm. So, they left me alone for a while. And then, that was like about 3 hours. And then about 5 hours, they came back. And there was a lot more of them. And they were more aggressive. They told me they would charge me if I didn't move off the road. So... or I had to give up one lane at least. So so I said, okay, I'll move off the the northbound lanes and stay on the southbound lanes, or no, I move off the southbound lanes and move on to the northbound lanes, and so I moved and so I was only blocking half the street, and the police officer says, well, you know what, since why don't you just give up one more lane, let the traffic go behind you, give it one more lane. Mm-hmm. So being a nice person, I did. I let them have that. I give them that lane. I said, okay, I'll just keep one block in one lane. But then they got more aggressive and said, okay, you know what? And then they wanted to push my. They took my speaker and they took the speakers and microphone. The speakers, unplugged the speakers and put them on the sidewalk. And somebody else came and got them and put them back, plugged back in. But there was a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Right. So when they came, they pushed the buttons that disengaged the motors on my wheelchair, and we're going to push my wheelchair off. I said, you don't have to do that. I said, I will get off the road if you're going to charge me. You say you're going to charge me, okay, I'll do that. I'll get off the road. So then when I get off the road, they're not going to charge me. I asked them to charge me. I said, put the cuffs on. They don't want to do that. So then I said, okay, that's it. I'm going back on the road. So then when I started going on the road, they all started really fast. They tried to put their bicycles and block me with their bicycles from going back on the road from the sidewalk. Right. So I managed to skirt around one bicycle, and the one police officer, if you look in the video, is like, oh, watch my toes or something. But you know what? I never ran over her toes. Yeah. And it was her trying to get in my way, that if there would have been an accident, it would have been her fault. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because she was trying to block me. Okay, and there's no reason for to block me when I'm doing a peaceful protest. Yeah. So there was there's a number of things that weren't really right. What was going on? So I had them tell me when a couple of weeks earlier I did another protest at Yonge and Wellesley, and I was there for 3 hours. And the police left me alone in the intersection for 3 hours. At first they came and they harassed me, and they took my speaker and they took it off the road. And they wouldn't let my friend go and get it. They told him that if he touched it, that he would be under arrest. And I said that, you're stealing. You're stealing off me. This is my stuff. I rented this stuff, and you're stealing. By taking it without my permission, that's theft. And they even said, I should do it. I want to do a citizen's arrest on the one on what I did at Yonge and Dundas. I asked that the one officer be arrested as a citizen's arrest for stealing my speaker. Oh. But it's not right that they do this. They're acting like anti-protesters. They're aggressive. They're intimidating. When I protested at Bell Media on August 5th, we blocked the street there for 3 hours. it was never made it on the news because Bell Media never sent out any news camera or reporter or anything. They did send a reporter out at lunchtime, but instead of doing it, their weather in front of the building like they usually do, they did it in the alley. I was told. So they did send a news camera out at noon that while we were there, but they didn't send it out the front of the building. They sent it out the back. But the police, in their actions there, they let me block the street. They did block the street after a fair amount of arguing and stuff. And because I had let them know about that I was doing a protest the day before. And every time I've let the police know that I'm doing a protest. The one time being in college, it was only half an hour notice, but I did give them notice.
Yeah.
So it's only a courtesy anyways. There's no law that says you have to give them notice.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and the TTC, when I did in front of Bell Media, the TTC did stop their vehicles with people on them. They rerouted them around so that I can have my protest. And, but after I'd been on the road for about 2 hours over there, all of a sudden a streetcar starts coming. The police let a streetcar come through the police lines. And the TTC official comes up and says, "Oh, this is just a training vehicle. Can you let the training vehicle by?" This is like intimidation there. They keep disrupting my protest.
What is a training vehicle?
It was a training vehicle. Was just a vehicle that the TTC used to train new drivers,
Right.
And they do not carry passengers while a new driver is being trained. So it wasn't as if this vehicle. There was some emergency to get this vehicle through. If anything, if we're disrupting it and they're using the ones with passengers on and moving them, rerouting them, why could they not reroute the training vehicle as well? As part of their training. To try and make it say that I don't know. It was just, to me, that was just pure intimidation, and when the police officer at Bell Media. I had to lose it on him because he asked me at least 25 times if I'm sure I wouldn't like to give up a lane of traffic to let the traffic go by. Well, you don't have to ask if I'm a grown person. I'm 60 years old. I know my own mind. If I say no, I don't want to give up a thing. Why are you coming back in my face 25 times to ask me the same question unless you are trying to be passive aggressive and intimidate me or bully me?
And what has your encounter with police been like in your past protests?
Well, that's pretty much it, the past protests. But, when they leave me alone, we do fine. But when they constantly get at me and argue with me and in my face and try to intimidate and threaten me with things, I have severe IBS and acid reflux. And it really aggravates, the stress of all this stuff. It really aggravates my severe IBS, which causes me a lot of pain. And a lot of videos, you see me squirming around when I'm arguing with the police because I'm in so much pain.
Right.
It's just, it's uncalled for, it's legal to protest in Canada.
Yeah.
So, they shouldn't, I don't think it's part of the job, the police description to. But maybe it is. Maybe that's what they're being trained to do. And if they are being trained to do that, to step on human rights, then, there is a problem with the police department. They shouldn't be training officers. Officers should be accountable to what the Nuremberg trials found after World War II, what they said about the guards that were at the Auschwitz in the gas chambers and whatever, at the camps, guarding the prisoners and marching them into the things. Is like following orders is no excuse.
Yeah. Under Section 2 of the Human Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it is legal to protest, especially in public spaces, as long as it is a peaceful protest. When, to my knowledge, it was a peaceful protest.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do want to know is, near the end of the video of your arrest, you were urging the police officers to arrest you. Why did you say that?
Put the cuffs on, let's go. Put the cuffs on, let's go. Put the cuffs on. Put the cuffs on.
I asked them to arrest me, Dee, because I was just really tired of them constantly getting in my face, doing these protests. we've done a lot of protests. Like I've done two major ones at Queen's Park. I've done them at the ODSP OW office on Wellesley Street a couple times. I've done them. We crashed Bill Morneau's picnic and protested outside there and around the picnic. We protested at Doug Ford's house last Christmas because nothing's being done, and we go to the Queen's Park and the media doesn't want to air nothing that we say.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to seem to tell what's going on and why people are struggling, why people are homeless, and why people are asking for euthanasia because they're stressed out and feel like they're being ignored. So we've done all that. So we had to step it up our game. So we started going into the streets to try and get some attention from the media.
Right.
You know, so that's the reason I asked them to arrest me is because I want to bring this up in the court of law as to if it's legal to protest in Canada, then why are the police bothering the protesters?
Yeah.
If it's legal to block a road, as it says when you Google it in Canada, then why are the police trying to push me off the road? What I want to know is I want a judge to give us clarification. I want the judge to tell us what makes a protest valid, how many people you have to have at a protest before the police will block the traffic so that you're safe and instead of getting in your face.
Mm-hmm.
I would like the judge to clarify what the police's role is at protests and if they are legally allowed to aggravate and the situation to get protesters angry or to upset them so that they do start swearing, to wreck their protest so that people won't share it on video. Because, you know, people with me, like I have PTSD, I have seasonal affective disorder, I have depression, I have anxiety. When they get at me and my anxiety flares up and my IBS flares up and I'm in pain, I do tend to swear some. And, you know, it's frustrating because I shouldn't have to. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I go there in a good spirit and no intention of swearing, but it comes from aggravation from the police that just aggravate the situation constantly. Yeah. And there's no need for it.
Yeah, personally, I do think they should be more considerate.
You know, and so we need the judge to clarify. If we're allowed to protest and where we're allowed, you know, if it says we're allowed to block a road, then why can't we block a road?
Yeah.
And we also need to know why is it that police that they think they can judge which protest is better and which protest is worthy. You know, like when I went to one time to ask tell them I'm going to have the protest, the police officer comes out. You know, I wasn't using my wheelchair because I can still walk. My doctor wants me to walk as much as possible. But when I went there, the first words of the officer that on the desk when they came out the door of police headquarters in Toronto was, "Here's a novel idea. Why don't you get a job?" So there is a problem, and you know, Doug Ford is leading by example by telling people to get a job. Well, the ODSP and OW office at 111 Wellesley has been closed since COVID-19 began, along with their job resource center that's included in the building. It's all closed. Yeah. So Doug Ford telling people, it's all lunacy what's going on, and we can't seem to get heard. So that's why we're in the road.
Are you also like a supporter of the defund the police movement?
Yeah, I don't think that they get an increase every year. There's no reason. There's no need for that. You don't have to buy a new car every year. You don't have to upgrade every year for everything. When the police cameras, they get more money for the police cameras. That should have came out of the budget, the money they already had. And the money that they're going to give that for the more cameras, that should have went for social services and hire more mental health professionals. I think that I don't think the police should have their own mental health professionals. I think they should be working in tandem with a mental health group. Yeah. That's specially made. They really should make up a new special group. Yeah. Like somebody pointed out, the RCMP was mostly made up and brought to life because to control the native indigenous populations. So that their very roots are to control and keep people down and stuff. So like that, they should just be disbanded, and something new should be made. And same thing. That like the government, they're talking. That everybody's asking for them to defund the police. And what did they do? They increased the OPP budget. They increased the police budget. They bought them new cameras with more money. You know what I mean? This is not right. They're not listening to the citizens. The police I figure, are just here for the 1%. They're the 1% is afraid that the poor will rise up, and the police are the buffer between them.
Now, rise up in what way?
To get to rise up and put an end to this poverty and this greed and that. Every dollar that Justin Trudeau printed out for CERB has gone into the 1%'s bank accounts. It hasn't gone back to be redistributed around society and going to be circulated. No, it all ends up in the 1%. These 1%'s have a money addiction. People talking about all these other addictions. Nobody wants to talk about a wealth addiction. Well, if they're not spending the money and they're just hoarding it, it's doing nobody any good in the world. All the ills in the world today is all related from the 1% of past generations. It's all to do with money, and trade and everything. It's all to do with rich people. The way that people are treated in Africa, the way people are treated in South America, the way people are treated in Canada, indigenous, disabled, whatever. It's all to do with the 1%. So the 1% should all be arrested and charged with crimes against humanity. Give them a tiny home to live in. Give them mansions, a way to, turn them into housing. Into market rent housing. They got to get rid of this housing stuff, like Toronto housing. That they're putting more and more low-income families and workers in there. It just does not do well, because if people like they're disabled and stuff that are in there complaining about their lack of sleep. And stuff that people that are working, they're not getting good sleep either. So they're not being as productive at work. So they're not getting the raises and the bonuses and the promotions. So and the people who they are in the schools being educated with getting woken up constantly is affecting their education, and they don't get into better jobs and better education because of it. So this is why everybody should have average market rent. The government is dictating where people should. This is just going to keep those people from reaching higher goals, because they're not going to get promotions at work. So they're keeping the people in poverty. And by keeping people poor, it makes them create crime. I'm actually committing fraud every time I use my credit card, knowing that I'm having a hard time paying for it just to get more food. And I shouldn't have to do that. The government's using the poor people, disabled people, and indigenous people as fodder for the criminal court system. To justify, at the end result is to justify an increase in police budget. If you give people more, the government is changing people's morals. People that would not shoplift 20 years ago might find themselves now shoplifting because they were hungry. People that a lot of refugees, 40% of the people in shelters are refugees. A lot of these refugees, they come with they have they come because of being persecuted because of Christian beliefs or other religious beliefs, and they come here and they're religious people. They want to be upstanding, but then they're put into shelters or kept in poverty in Toronto housing, and you're making pious people criminals. You know what I mean? Like you're changing ethics and morals from just to so the police can have more vehicles and more armor and more armored vehicles, so that the 1% feel more safe.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
there's like a large stigma with disabled people and being criminals. And
by painting homeless people, most of the people that are homeless are clients of ODSP and OW and other provinces equivalents. So by labeling them criminals and drug addicts, you're labeling everybody on ODSP and OW. You know, before that, they were calling everybody. Doug Ford was calling people on disability. They were scammers and fraudsters and cheats.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? We're just people.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We're Canadian citizens.
Mm-hmm.
We know, and this is where the federal government has to step up too, because we won't tell the world that we're Ontarians. We're telling the world we're Canadian citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So the federal government has to step up, as well as the provincial government, to take care of the citizens. Just as John Tory is failing Canadian citizens who are Torontonians who live in his city that are disabled and on welfare, because he should be demanding that Doug Ford increase the basic needs and the shelter allowances. You know, the shelter allowances should be tripled, and we're asking for them to be doubled. We're asking for the basic needs to be doubled. You know, but really it should be tripled. You know, like $497 for a disabled person to rent a place to live is not enough money. Even if you double it to $994, it still falls short of a one-bedroom or bachelor unit, which most disabled people need for their medical devices, you know, and to be able to cook it. You have to have a kitchen and stuff. You know, they can't.
Yeah.
You know, and same way, if you double OW, the shelter allowance of $390 to $780, well, that's what a room is now. It's about $800 they're running about the average. So why are they not doing this? When they say they don't know how to fix homelessness, it's a crock.
Yeah, can you tell us more about the petitions for that?
Yeah, you know,
and
like
all the signatures that you guys got. Yeah, there was no action from the government.
You know, we started an e-petition because we thought that we could submit it, but it turns out the provincial government doesn't allow e-petitions. The federal government does, but you have to use their e-petition site.
Right.
But, you know, we have over 42,000 names on the petition now to have the ODSP and OW shelter and basic needs allowances doubled. But, you know, and because we couldn't get that, we tried to get another petition going with Jill Andrew, and she put this thing together, and so we couldn't get people to sign, go around with a clipboard and get people to sign, because everybody's scattered across Ontario on disability.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and because of COVID and whatnot, so we had people mail in their information along with their signature to be added to a petition. Well, this went on for a while that we never heard anything back, and we've checked out. We're trying to get answers about what's happening. She's saying that Jill is telling us that they couldn't find the letters at Queen's Park, that there was no letters there. She did. We never did find out, even if she got my letter, because I know I mailed one to Queen's Park, so we never did find out whatever happened to any of those letters. She did post on her site holding up a letter. Oh, I got your letter. Well, that wasn't the letter that I mailed her to Queen's Park. That was a letter that was just an envelope of signatures that we collected on August 5th in front of Bell Media.
Mm-hmm.
So we gave her some signatures so that she could start another petition. So that was like the third petition. So she did use the third petition, those signatures, to bring it up in Queen's Park along with the petition. She mentioned that. But there's nothing, no response. Doug Ford's response is get a job. Mm-hmm. You know, but yeah, and everything's closed. The ODSP office is closed.
Yeah.
And their job resource center is closed. And they just don't want, you know what, we need help. We really do. That's why I'm out in the middle of the streets. That's why I risk my life driving into traffic. Mm-hmm. You know, I shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, no.
You know, I shouldn't even have to start POOF. You know, I mean, it should be up to able-bodied people to take care of disabled people. You know, somewhere by our leaders leading by example, and by calling everybody scammers, and this, you know, it's made it acceptable for the voters to think, for the politicians to treat us like this, and to keep us in poverty and homeless, and they're creating more and more homeless. There's lots of people that are disabled and on welfare that are not in Toronto housing or any other subsidized housing, and are using most of their check or all of their check for rent. Now, a lot of them are in older buildings and stuff, and they've been there for years, 8, 10, 12, 15 years, and they're getting rent evicted because the landlord wants to renovate their place so they can charge more rent. So that they're evicting them and saying that, oh, well, we need the room for our family, but then after the person moves out, we know they renovate it, and it just goes on the market for higher rent. So, but the thing is, these people that got evicted can no longer find a place to rent at that $800 or $900 level. So now their rents are $1,500. Now those people are homeless too. Now, so they are creating homelessness. The government is creating homelessness.
So what are your demands for the Ontario government?
Our demands are that they double or raise ODSP, the basic needs and the shelter allowances for both ODSP and OW 100%, raise it 100%. Never mind this 1.5% and 3% that they argue about. That does nothing. That's like $11. It was 1.5%. $11 did nothing. You know, we got $3 on our it was $13 altogether that people on ODSP got. It was $3 on their rent allowance, and $10 on their basic needs allowance. It went from $662 to $672. Basic needs for disability is $672. Basic needs for welfare is $340. It's not enough, you know. Yeah. When people talk that the $2,000 for a CERB wasn't enough, Justin Trudeau said Canadian citizens need $2,000 to live on. Are people that are disabled and on welfare not Canadian citizens because they are? You know, like, it's cruel and unusual punishment for being disabled or poor.
So what can people do to help support your cause or just to help people with disabilities?
Well, I think we need to get food banks to all pick a date in the future, whether it's 5 years or 3 years, 3 or 5 years. I think 3 years would be plenty enough time. And to give forewarning to the government that they're going to stop accepting food, stop accepting money for food, stop doing food drives. So the government has to address poverty. And we've asked that, you know, the fire departments, the police departments, the media, and everybody else stop doing all these drives. Because it just gives our government an out and an excuse that they don't have to address poverty. Because, you know, you guys are taking care of it. You know what? Aren't you guys getting tired of taking care of it? When it's the government's job, when there's disabled people that don't have family or family people that can help support them. You know, disabled people have contact. I used to carve soapstone. I did a lot of carvings. I wrote a lot of poetry. But that's all gone by the wayside because I had to start fighting, and I was struggling so much that it's lost my creativeness and my drive to do that. I'd like to go back to doing that. There's no money in it. I do it for pleasure. I do sell the odd one that somebody wants to pay for it, but mostly you just give them away. The same thing with everything else. What people can't do. There's so many people got so much stuff now. It's just commercialism with them. I have so much stuff at home that I don't buy nothing. It's just people give you so much stuff. So stuff does not put food on the table. You know, if for now we need people to really hammer out emails to the politicians and ask them that they demand better treatment for disabled people and poor people. Like I said, a lot of people on OW belong on ODSP. The government just made the restrictions so bad that they can't get on it. You know, they talk about long-term care homes, but a lot of people on ODSP and OW are going to end up in long-term care homes. They talk about giving seniors dental care, but in the meantime, before the people get there, their teeth are rotting and falling out of their heads because they can't get dental on OW, or they're not enough coverage on ODSP. They get some, but not enough. But on OW, they don't get anything. They get a tooth pulled, but then that leaves a gap. They can't get bridges. They can't get dentures. It's a farce, you know. And things like orthotics, when you apply for them from ODSP, it goes to another agency because ODSP doesn't cover it. You know, you need your CPAP. People talk about basic income. That's another smokescreen. Housing. All these things are smokescreens to the real issue of poverty. Community meals, food banks, housing, shelters, and basic income. There's 5 smoke screens that they're putting up to try to block the real issue of poverty.
Yeah, quick
So-
fixes. Yeah. Well, we are going to have to cut this interview
Yeah,
short,
yeah.
but we will continue this discussion because it is a very large issue, and we will be keeping up to date with you about also your court date and what happens after that.
Yeah, you know, I really hope the judge can address. I really hope that the police don't withdraw this charge and that it actually goes through, because I think the police need to know as well what their boundaries are.
Yeah.
I think there has to be some boundaries set, and maybe it's it shouldn't be up to me to challenge this. I mean, if I wanted to challenge the protest laws on my own without being charged, I would have to get a lawyer to start the proceedings, and I think I don't know, I really have to cram up on stuff.
Yeah.
But I think doing it this way, because the police charged me, and in actuality, public nuisance for fighting for my life and my nuisance. Well, really, if you really wanted the traffic, you could have charged me with impeding traffic, maybe, or blocking traffic. But it's legal to block traffic. Yeah, maybe you could have done impeding traffic, but still, I wasn't in a vehicle going below the speed limit and impeding vehicles from going around me. So.
Yeah. Any other closing ends?
I think we might do another protest before Christmas.
Okay.
And hopefully we can get some media out and hopefully we get some politicians again. I'm regularly struggling whether we do it at Queen's Park, because I feel that we mostly just get ignored at Queen's Park.
Right.
I think maybe Yonge and Bloor might be an idea. I don't know. Let's see. I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay. We will see you there probably.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you so much, Dee, for having me and let me air this stuff out, because you're one of the few news media outlets that's gonna try to expose what's going on, and I really appreciate that.
And we appreciate your honesty and your
thumbs up
bravery.
for N24 for sure.
Thanks.
Both thumbs. There you go.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
You can learn more about Isabella Gamk and POOF at these links here. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and comment to support N24 on our social media platforms. I'm Dee Hundal from N24 in the heart of it.